Welcome to the Rabasha Family Podcast. Now, guys, I am sitting here at the offices and the headquarters of Pro Visa Services. And for you guys, we wanted to do a series because, as I've said, in life, we meet people along different paths. You know, you've been able to conjure something from your mind, from your imagination, and bring it out into physical reality. So I want to sit here down with you guys as I'm sitting here with the founder of Pro Visa Services, a proud father, proud husband, and we want to be able to get into your story on how you've been able to build this empire.
Sure, Eve. Thanks so much for having me here, by the way. It's great. So, I mean, look, I want to start with the year that I thought about potentially studying migration law. So this is going back, even 2012. That's when I started thinking about migration law because I was actually working for the corporate environment and I realized the corporate environment is quite capped in terms of my capabilities and where you can reach in life. So it was very apparent for me that, the corporate politics and, there's a lot goes out in the corporate environment. And then I realized, okay, there's a potentials that we have, it's always going to be capped in this environment. So I started looking at some opportunity outside of the corporate world, which means potentially starting my own business. So as I was thinking about what will be the better, suited business for my personality type, and I keep saying it's more about identifying your strength. So I think being a people person, I think I'll be better suited with the service industry. And that's when the whole ideas started coming into play.
Okay, so that's when the idea started. Let's take it back even more. Where are you from?
I'm from Nepal, a little country sandwiched between India and China. From Kathmandu, which is the capital city of Nepal. My grandfather, my father, all raised in Kathmandu, so we have never left the capital city of Kathmandu. And I finished my high school, and my dad was the biggest fan of Australia, and he's been here before, so he was like, "You got to go to Australia and experience Australian lifestyle and the culture." And I think, that's all it started. So I came to Australia, end of 2004, and then started my journey.
So how old were you?
I was 19 when I first came here. Yeah.
Brothers, sisters?
I've got one sister. She was in Singapore at that time. She was studying because my grandfather served as a Singapore Army. So she was actually studying in Singapore when I was in Australia, and later she joined me in Australia. So she's in Australia now.
Yeah. And how was life in Nepal, like growing up? So from the ages of even 1 to 10, what was life like?
Well, I think being a developing country or even underdeveloped country, I think the facilities that is provided by the country itself is quite low. But again, we were privileged to have a family or born in a family that were able to provide us with all the facilities in our home, and then also provide us with the right education, because my mum and dad was the biggest believer of education. So they want to make sure that their children get the right education from the beginning. So even our schoolings were probably one of the best ones in Nepal, and we went to did our higher education after the high school in Nepal, and then for further higher education, they believe Australia would be the right destination for better education. So that's when they decided to send me here. So yeah, in terms of my lifestyle, when I was a kid, I wouldn't say I was too deprived from the world. I still have all the facilities, like, being able to access internet when I was a kid, or having room size computer at home was a privilege. But I guess I was born and raised by the family who believes on values and principles and integrity and making sure you're always looking out for each other. We were never spoiled as such in terms of all that privilege we received. We took that as the opportunity rather than we took that as an adversarial for our future career.
When you look at your parents, what was their relationship like?
My father was more of an outdoor person, so he was, growing up, he was never home. So he was into a movie industry, so he was always into, shooting a movie, or he's always out and about. So mainly we grew up with mum. So mum was the one who's taking care of, our day-to-day hustle, and then making sure that we are ready for the school. If there's, she's the one making sure that our tiffin was packed up so that we have lunch, at school, and making sure she's, she's making sure that we do our homeworks and everything like that. So yeah, growing up was the father was more of an outdoor cat, and then mum was more of someone who's taking care of our household stuff and looking after us. So, but then I think their relationship was great because I think they understood their responsibilities and they've sort of divided that, household chores between them, and I think they did a fantastic job.
Yeah. So that's also interesting. And you said it was a very traditional household,
Yes.
How was it, your dad's always your hero. Was that hard for you not spending as much time with him because he's out working quite a lot?
Yeah, it was always, hard to compare yourself with someone else who's going out and about, on family vacations and, going, for picnic and stuff like that with their entire family. But I didn't think we had that privilege because Dad was more busy into, and if you look at the movie industry and film industry in developing countries, he has to probably go through a lot of challenges. So hence he was more occupied than, in a developed nation. But then again, I guess, yes, it was a bit hard to, not being able to get that privilege to spend a lot of time with father when I was little. But then I guess I've got more time now with him than more so when I was little.
Okay, so you're 19 years of age. The idea comes up to go study in Australia. What's going through your mind? And talk us about that process.
Well, I was actually preparing myself to go to Japan because I had my godfather is from Japan, so and he wanted me to come to Japan, and I was learning Japanese language, you believe it or not. And then I think as I was learning the language, it was a bit hard to learn that language and also been able to go and study in the different language. And you've been studying English and Nepalese until like high school, and it's going to be very hard for you to actually absorb a new language and be able to adapt in Japan. So I was already a bit skeptical about going to Japan. So and I had my cousins and brothers who are living in Sydney, and they have spent some time in Australia. That moment, some of my family members from Australia was visiting Nepal, and we happened to be talking about, okay, why not Australia as opposed to Japan? And I think that's how the ball started rolling. And the initial days was more of a, what course or what subject you want to go and study. And I think being a science student, I did science in Nepal. But then, for the visa purpose, whatever that is, to come to Australia, someone made a recommendation to do an accounting subject. And I think I came here to do an accounting, which I terribly hated. And I had to change it like ASAP because I couldn't stand that debit and credit in TAFE. Ultimate TAFE was the college that I first came into Australia. So not Ultimate TAFE. Petersham TAFE was the one college that I first landed in Australia. And I didn't like the course. I did manage to study, but then I didn't like the course at all, and I changed it. But again, that's how the journey started.
Yeah. So you're 19 years old. What's that experience like? Like where in Sydney?
Yeah, I landed in Sydney, and then obviously, as you know, being 19 years old, you're young, you're naive, and you're not exposed to the first world country, and you never come out of your shell. Like you've always been brought up with the big traditional family who was looking after you from cooking to cleaning, ironing, everything. And then all of a sudden you're coming to Australia, and then you got to be independent, and not just independent, be able to look after yourself and manage your emotions, manage your the homesickness, and being away from the family. There was a lot of challenges. Obviously, as an international student coming to the new country, there was a lot of cultural shock. It was very overwhelming, I would say, at the early days, and I couldn't find my feet, or I wasn't able to focus quite quickly because I was really in delusion or maybe confused in terms of many things in a first world country.
What was your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge was be able to relate and connect with the community, because there was a lot of yes, I used to talk in English because we studied in English speaking school, but then even be able to articulate and express yourself with the Australians or coming into the Australian culture, the hardest bit was to be able to understand where people are coming from and be able to connect with them. So I would say, yes, finding a job and landing yourself a nice employment or being able to work was challenging, but more so than challenging, I think be able to connect with the people so you can express whatever you wanted to express. And I think it has a flow-on effect of everything that you do, isn't it? Like looking for a job or going for college or anything like that. It's the language, it's about the communication. Just because you know how to talk doesn't necessarily mean you understand people or be able to articulate, because it's a different country. They have a different slang, different jargon, different ways of understanding things. So that was the hardest bit, I would say.
Wow. So I can see what you're talking about, because it's all well to understand and speak, but again, mastering the art of communication. How do I be able to talk with people and move along and able to empower yourself? So you were in accounting directly when you came.
Yes.
Yeah. You came, you hated that.
Yeah.
And then where was the transition?
Well, I hated that. Then I was actually working for a hospitality industry, and I was actually a bartender, in one of the busiest pub in this, Sydney CBD. And I was making cocktails and drinks and stuff like that. And I think, that's where I learned that the skill of being people person. I started talking with different people, and that's why I always encourage all these young people coming to Australia is go and get yourself a job that where you need to talk, you are forced to talk with the people, you're forced to make them laugh, you're forced to understand the slangs, and being in a bar also gives you privilege of understanding real Australian culture. For example, like sports events, the Australia is one of the country that we follow sports, there's rugby, there is a footy, there's a tennis, and there is many things that Australia follows, like cricket and soccer and everything like that. So I think, to be able to meet all these different people while I was working in hospitality industry has actually given me that real opportunity to be able to understand, what is Australian community is all about, and also be able to divest myself into different areas of interest, and which means effectively in a future you can connect and talk with any person, because certain sports, and certain drinks, certain music, and I think bar and hospitality is a great way to start your journey in Australia, because it really exposes you to many sectors. And I think the transition was I feel like I'm better suited with the hospitality industry, so I did my hospitality degree after that. So believe it or not, and I think that was the big shift for me from a science background to accounting to hospitality. And then after hospitality, I started doing migration law. And after migration law, I went to Sydney University and did my law degree.
Hey guys, I'm here at the headquarters of Pro Visa Services, where you can get first-class professional service. You see, life is all about the service that you provide other people. How can you obsess over other people's problems? How could you obsess in the finer details in order to achieve your dreams? As a first-generation African immigrant, know what it's like to live here in Australia. The beauty, the life, being able to see my loved ones every single day. And we know so many other people want to be able to share and cultivate that experience. Well, here at Pro Visa Services, you get just that, a family environment where you're able to make your dreams come true. Make sure to follow Pro Visa Services and the Rabasha Family Podcast. These people are coming in, they want to have a good time. I'm serving them, but in serving them, I'm able to communicate. And 100% what's brought you here today.
Yeah. And also, when you, as I keep saying to any young entrepreneurs or anyone who would like to do different things, don't worry about whether or not you're going to be good, or don't worry about whether or not you should start. Don't worry about thinking that you don't know how to do things. And I keep saying the best way to learn how to swim is throw yourself in the deeper end, because you have to get out of the deeper end by moving your arms and know how to swim. So and that's what happened. A majority of the people from non-English background from different country, they're very skeptical to go and join themselves in a busy bar or pub where there's a lot of Anglo Asians are working, and they're making fun of you or anything like that. Yes, it might be a little bit awkward for you to get your hands dirty or maybe experience that in the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, you have to learn. It's almost like a swimming, isn't it? You started swimming, and then you started learning all of this, and soon you started becoming friends with all that people that used to kind of bully you or maybe just even make fun of you. That slowly you started adapting the culture, and then you pick up their friends. So next chapter from there is you're only evolving yourself, because now you know the foundation of how, like a survival kit of Australia, then what you do is you just build on top, you know what I mean? And that's how you should be doing.
Wow. I think that's great advice, especially for people who not only want to come to Australia, but when it comes to entrepreneurship and diving into your dreams,
100%
desire, you know, because a lot of times we try to have everything figured out.
Yeah.
But no, like you said, dive into it.
100%. And as you've heard, you hear all the time as motivational speakers or anyone who keeps saying there are only very few people, 90% of the people only think about what they want to do, only 10% actually go and execute it. And even out of the 10% who's going to go and execute it, 90% is going to fail, which means there's only 10% of that 10% who's going to potentially going to make it. But then I guess the journey is not about success or failure. I guess the journey is more about learning. So what did you learn in that first attempt is the gold mine, because whenever you do the second business, whenever you do the second project, you're not starting from the zero, because now you're starting with experience.
You've acquired that
Yes.
knowledge and information.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. So let's fast forward it. And this is why I wanted to do this, because this is fascinating, to get in behind of what you went through, because like you said, there's very few people who are able to get something from their imagination and bring it down to reality. You're a visionary and you've acted on that and being able to serve people. So let's talk about when you went into the corporate, because I want to get into the entrepreneurship field.
Sure.
And then we can transition it off. But yeah, so what happened after the bar and...
Oh yeah. Okay. So since working in a bar it comes with the perks as well. And the perks is you have to work at nights, and then while everyone is sleeping, you're the ones actually working. And when you are not working, everyone else is sleeping. So basically, it works in a different time zone. So it kind of created some complications with my relationship with my wife, because I'll be coming home from graveyard shift, which is working all nighters, finishing 4 o'clock in the morning. By the time you're home, about 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, when my families are having breakfast, I'm the ones having dinner. And then by the time they're ready to start their day, I'm ready to go to the bed. So really that transition, of course, there was a good part of working in the hospitality industry. I learned all this good stuff. But then the in the high-end side, there was other adversarial disadvantage was I'm actually disconnected with the world or my family. You know what I mean? So I guess I think it was a phase of my life that I potentially would not enjoy. Being in a pub with a loud music with all these youngsters jumping around. I think that was the turning off moment for me from the hospitality, because I think I've gained it all. I've sort of squeezed everything out of the hospitality industry. So I got to move on. And that's when I met my friend who was working for this corporate environment in a contact center. And I started my job, and I did not, hesitate to start fresh from the beginning, and started my career as a contact center person. So I was, picking up calls for these people. And soon, I think in 3 to 4 months' time, I moved my way up to become a contact center manager. And then soon after that, become an operation manager. Soon after that, I become a project operation manager. And soon after that, I worked in a product team. And that was the last position that I hold as a corporate person.
So just real quick, how old were you with the bar job?
I started quite early, probably about 20, on my early 20s, and I worked until about 25, 26.
25, 26.
Yeah.
Okay. And you go over to this call center. Was it sales?
Yeah, it wasn't sales. It was more of an inbound, and outbound. It was actually, you can say it's a sales. It was more of it's a membership organization, and we used to call our members to let them know that they're due for renewals, and we used to just ask them to make a payment. And it was a big Australian brand, and so people had a lot of trust. So it wasn't too hard to obtain the renewal fees, but it's more of a fact that you have to be able to sell as well, because some people would like to just terminate, or they don't want to renew the membership. But my job was to make sure that they renew the membership and they get the value out of the service. But soon I become the contact center manager, and then move my way up to project implementation, project manager, and then product team.
So yeah, warm leads. What made you get so many promotions?
I guess I was already built with the people skills, right? So I can talk with anyone. You give me I can sell ice to the Eskimo, if you want to put it that way. So, and they, whenever I used to call the member, basically I'm representing myself over the phone. They don't know me, they haven't seen me. So basically it's all over the phone. So what tends to happen is, I was talking to them and they used to call me a guy with a silver tongue. So what they used to say is, how can I say no to someone like you? So I guess I sort of incorporated whatever I've learned from the past work and just isolated that particular skills and implemented in the new work environment, and that worked for me.
But how? Well, like what would you do when you speak to them on the phone that would hook them in?
I think in terms of people, in terms of understanding people, it's more about being able to connect and the empathy and also active listening. Because the thing is, if you're not listening to them and if you're the only one talking about your stuff, people never going to be connected. And if you want it to be connected, you got to listen. And as the wise people say, when you talk, you only talk what you know. But when you listen, you learn more stuff in life. So when you listen, then you can actually understand the people in a better ways, and then you can actually connect with them. And when you connect with them, when you know the pain point, you talk about the pain point and you try to sell this stuff, which will take the pain to the pleasure.
Wow. Okay, so it's so interesting because as you're saying this, I clearly see why we're here today. You see, like being able to listen to your clients, being able to be empathetic, I think it plays a major role. So you're in this corporate field, you've been moving up. Now, what got into your mind to now, go into the deep end and start your own firm?
To be very honest, I think with the corporate level, there was one particular event that I would like to share with the audience, and I think maybe majority of the people will probably be in the similar situation as well. There was one particular event that we all were sitting in the room, in a meeting room, a nice looking executive meeting room. We were sitting there and we were talking about how should we utilize this $20 million for the company and how can we generate more revenue for this $20 million. And some of the ideas was floating around on the table was, I still remember that and I cringe about it because it's so easy to make a decision for the company, which is not your company, which is not your money. It's so easy to come up with some random ideas, which deeper down is never going to work. But then if it's your own money, you would not talk about some of these silly ideas, right? But if it's someone else's money, that even the higher up, bigger people will start talking about some ideas, some rubbish ideas, which is never going to work. It's only going to invest that money. It's only going to go down the drain. And I think that was a wake-up call for me because I started thinking about if this $20 million was my money, would I invest this money into this? And if my answer is no, why would I spend company's money into that wrong investment? So I guess and when this particular project went ahead, and that 20 million did actually ended up being invested into all these stupid ideas, and it was a no-brainer. It was a biggest failure. Then I knew it because I doubted that from the beginning because this is not going to work. And then all this, intelligent, wise people in the meeting room was actually adamant that this particular, investment will work and will generate revenue out of this. And well, in fact, we'll lose all that money. And I knew it because I was already thinking about this. And I think that was my turning point because if people were not listening to you and if they were happy to invest $20 million only to realize, we should have listened to you and then not invested that money, I think then I started questioning to myself, maybe I'm capable of doing things on my own. And that's how I sort of gained my confidence. Sometimes you need to look at the example. Sometimes you need to look at the decisions that you made in life and then for someone else. And if that decision works out well, then you got to think about that potentially is your strength and maybe you wanted to start doing something on your own.
I know you're watching this video, but real quick, please guys, make sure you take the time to like, share and subscribe. Go and hit the subscribe button so we can keep giving you guys content, so you guys can be notified as soon as we drop some news and information that's really going to help you. And then another thing guys, and by the way, subscribing, it doesn't cost any money, nothing, no dollars, just go in there, hit the subscribe button. Again, Spotify, make sure you download our episodes on Spotify. We are exclusive to Spotify because we are getting that deal. You know what I'm saying? We're getting that $1 million deal. So if you want to listen to the Rebasha Family Podcast, you have to go on Spotify. Okay, so you had that epiphany, you said, and how old were you at this time?
I'm close to 40.
No, like at the time you had the epiphany to leave your job?
I started this business about 8 years ago. So take away whatever, 40 minus 8. So about 32.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about now starting a law firm and why migration law?
Well, I guess I went through this journey myself when I was new to this country, very naive and very unknown about the complex visa system. And even for when my visa expired, I did not receive a proper guidance from, whatever the professional help that I was seeking. And people were too busy and they did not put me in the right direction from the beginning. So I guess, and then I realized, okay, well, this is something that I felt there is a big gap in the market, because if myself did not find anyone who's gonna come out and help me out properly, rather than just making me another, a guinea pig of trying new visas with me, or maybe, asking me to join different college to make money out of me, which is very apparent to me from the beginning. So I saw a real gap in the market, and also I transacted with certain community professionals as well, and I find a huge lack of professionalism. There was a breach of confidentiality. There was a breach of privacy, because they were talking about my case with some third party in the barbecue parties and stuff like that. So I've realized there is a big gap of professional services in our community, especially in the Nepalese community, but then I've been servicing every community at the moment. But again, I identified the gap, and I thought I might fulfill the gap in the market with my corporate/people experience in the past, with the quality education that I received into the community, and I think it worked out well.
Cool. Is it okay if you can just close this?
Yeah.
Just close this on the screen. Okay, wow. So how was that now opening? Because what's interesting for me is, again, like you saw, wow, if I haven't received guidance doing this, and, it's your life in the hands, you want to stay in Australia. Imagine how many other people, are going through the same thing.
Spot on.
Yeah.
And Australian immigration policies and laws are ever changing. And it's one of the most volatile, regulation or act that you wanted to say, that keeps changing in Australia out of any act that or any bills that gets passed. So, and it's very hard for people to keep up with it. So I think with that view of letting people know about what's changing, what's coming up, has also played a vital role for my success.
Okay. So how did it start?
Started with the one couple that I found who needed my help to apply for a partner visa. And my first application that I did was almost pro bono, because I remember my first service charge I asked for them was $500, and then this was a very complex partner visa process that I went through. But then that couple is still with me up until date in my connection, because they feel that I actually looked after the case really well, and I helped them out when they needed the most. And the husband now is Australian Federal Police.
Wow.
The wife was the Australian citizen, and then they got 3 kids now, and they got 3 beautiful daughters. And they, if they're watching this video, they know exactly who I'm talking about.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So I want to tap in there, because also what I'm getting from you, and when I walk into this store, is a family environment. But why is a partner visa so difficult? Why did you suffer difficult challenges?
Well, because in certain cases, like if you're not holding a proper visa, and you just because you're marrying someone in Australia, or you're in a relationship with someone in Australia, doesn't necessarily mean your visa process. It's not a golden visa, what people think, like you just find Australian partner or a citizen, you get married, and it's not a golden visa. There's still certain complexity we have to deal with it, like particularly Schedule 3, which I don't want to bore you with the detail, or public interest criteria 4020, things like that. There is still, we have to navigate through a complex process. So and this particular case was one of them. So not all cases are as simple, like they both hold a valid visa. They just wanted to one has to hold a valid visa, another one's Australian citizen or PR. And then they went in a relationship, everything was honky-dory, then they come to you. Well, basically in easier cases, people tend to lodge the application themselves. So they only seek a professional help when there is some complexity around it. And I guess I'm the lucky one to get all of that.
You're the lucky one. Yeah. So if I bring a hypothetical scenario to you, right? I have a girlfriend, let's say she's overseas in Africa. Kenya, what would be the best way for me to bring her to Australia?
Well, there's a couple of options there. Like if you have met this person in person, like you have actually met them once, then there is something called the visa subclass 300, which is prospective marriage. As the name suggests, you have a perspective of getting married with this person. So which means you can apply for this visa. This so-called girlfriend or partner in Africa will come to Australia. And then once the visa is granted, of course, she will come to Australia, and then you have obligation to get married within 9 months with this person. That's a good way of, trial before you buy kind of a deal. So, or if you're certain about this particular relationship and you do see yourself living with this person ongoingly, and then, there is a genuine commitment for each other, then you can simply get married, and we can apply for a partner visa offshore, which is 309 and 100 visa subclass. And if this person can come to Australia on a, just to visit Australia, and if they're visiting, and if you decided to get married in Australia, then we can also apply for onshore partner visa 820, 801.
Okay. And what about the student visa pathway? Is that, because sometimes, like I've heard and, through other people, because it's so crazy when I think about it, this migration, it's an interesting topic. And I feel that's why I love this, because we can now bring this out to the world, and someone like yourself who has the experience, who has the knowledge, can help so many people, and people who are in similar positions. So let me ask you, the student visa pathway, and is it a red flag to the government or the visa when it's like a young person? So let's say I'm 27, she's, let's say, in young 20s. Is that navigation?
Well, the student visa has been evolving, or ever evolving visa, because government tends to put some sort of control measures depending on what country, what risk assessment country I would say, because every country and every education providers has been given a risk rating, which is an internal reporting system that operates with the Department of Home Affairs. So, and how does this rating operate is depending on how many people have misused or abused the visa and have come to this country, and basically they've applied for a student visa as a gateway to come to this country, and they're not a genuine student. They have come here and exploited the visa, and they've applied for a protection visa, or they went unlawful, things like that. So based on the behavior of the people, where they're coming from, there is some methodology that is put behind the algorithm, and then that's how the Department of Home Affairs will allocate the countries based on the risk rating. So if your risk rating is 3, that means like that's not so great in terms of visa perspective. 2 is okay, and the 1's being very good. So usually 1 indicates that these people coming from these particular countries are, utilizing the visa for whatever the purpose they're saying on the application. They come here, they fulfill their studies, and they usually return back home. So as opposed to applying for different visa subclasses and try to push their stay for longer in Australia. So there is no general view as such. I don't think the Department of Home Affairs is discriminatory in terms of age or in terms of what they're doing. But I think it's all because Australian immigration law has a really nice foundation. It's not so, it's not, if you compare this with the American visa, which is very discretionary, which is very based on the case officer, based on the interview with the case officer. Well, Australian visa is all around legislation, all about being able to fulfill the legislation. And some legislation, some regulations are quite broad, so that the case officer can have some sort of discretion. And with the student visa, we call it a genuine temporary entrant criteria, which is what we call Direction 69, Migration Regulation 500.212. So with this particular, legislation is bound to look at the immigration history of this person, education history, the relevance, why this person wanted to come to Australia, their education history back home, or how they're going to utilize this particular qualification when they reach back home, things like that. So there is a tools for the case officer to assess all of this. So as long as this person can demonstrate, that this person is a genuine student who's want to come to Australia, genuinely wanted to study and come back home, I don't see any problem with the visa application. But then because there's a lot goes around the world for people who wants to come to Australia, they do many creative works in their paper application. So that's when things gets a little bit messy.
Okay. Yeah. I kind of went off on a tangent, but this is great information. So you have that client, and like you said, still to this day, how long ago was that? Nearly
Well, this was 8.5 years ago, almost 9 years ago.
8.5 years ago, and the fact that these people are still in your life today,
Yes.
family environment is something that's very important. So how did you scale from there? Like, you get that family, you obviously did well for them. How did you be able to scale?
Well, I guess my next move is because I'm a Supreme Court lawyer now. Before I was a migration agent, so my job is to start looking at how can I help out the community in other areas as well. And this is a very important topic. I guess domestic violence is on the rise at the moment with our particular community because they're not aware about this. The law in Australia. Unconsented sex, rape, sexual activities that is at workplace, or exploitation, underpayment, employment underpayment, like people are getting, cash in hand job and things like that, not being aware about the legal implication, even some criminal charges like, driving under influence,
Hey guys, this is Eve Rubashi here at the Just Co offices, made for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. You see, we're living in the greatest time to be alive, where you can use the power of social media, where you can get your voice out there, your brand. How can you put yourself in the front position? How can you use and utilize a media network to be able to build your brand? That is the mistake so many people make. They don't know how to build brand. They don't know how to use their voice and the art of communication to storytell. We have that platform, the Rubasha Family Podcast, made for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs, where you could utilize the power of social media to get your voice out there. You're gonna either do two things. You're gonna keep scrolling, or you're gonna take action and create history with the revolutionists. You have one choice. Don't be like the 98%. Take action now.
Or common assault, having a nice party with a friend, and next thing is all escalate to having, altercation, and then, a person being charged with the offense, the assault charge and things like that, and also the implication of that in your visa application. So there's a lot of awareness piece that I need to work on, and I think more so than, yes, there is a growth of the business, I need to look into it, which means expanding another branch and having more people, helping out people in a different area of Australia. But there is a real sense of corporate responsibility. CSR is what we call corporate social responsibilities. And I think being the industry leader, especially in our community, I think personally we need to expand that responsibilities to make people aware about certain legal aspect of things or behavior or the act they do in Australia and the legal implications, so that I can still educate our community to make sure that they don't get into trouble.
So that's where now you're
Yes.
focusing. So how have you been able to scale this business from obviously now having your first family to so many years?
Well, I guess as you grow, as you start your business, people will start looking at you in different areas as well. So we have a very intelligent marketing team who provides me with the reporting that suggests where people are proactively looking for me, like which location where the people are proactively looking for me. So, and it's not possible for one person to be available everywhere. So these data, this intelligence data is where the most effective way to understand where the people are looking out for you, and then go and open the branch there, and you would not fail because your data already suggests that people are proactively looking for you.
And that's why you've been able to open up. Yeah, cool. I think this is great, especially when we go into entrepreneurship. So before we finish it off, let's go back to the family. You said you had a wife. When did you meet your lovely wife?
I met her in very early days when I was in Australia. So I would suggest about 2005, 2006, and we got married in 2014. So with almost 7 years of relationship before we got married, and since then, we're together.
Why her?
I guess she was there supporting me as a friend. I knew her as a friend, and one thing leads to another. We started dating, but I guess she supported me when I needed the support in Australia, when I was kind of off track doing things that I'm not proud of. But then again, I think she came, and then I think she put me into the right area, and I think she supported me when I needed the most. So I think that's the most important component.
So she stuck by you. advice
Yeah.
side. What's some relationship advice?
I think the relationship advice is obviously life's full of ups and downs, and I guess if we understand, if one of the party is on the quest of achieving certain things, if the other party is actually taken care of things, like for example, my wife took care of my kids, she took care of my the entire household stuff and household chores. While I was away from home most of the time, away from the kids most of the time, setting up my own business, and I think and having that clear vision of each other's responsibilities, the important factor to keep the relationship alive.
So you have someone there like to support you, and,
Yes.
and it keeps you focused as well.
Yes.
Because I'm sure like a lot of men look up to you, and we're living a day and age where it's like, oh, to be a man and macho, but I think to have that one woman by your side, and how many kids?
2 kids.
2 kids. One woman by your side helping raise your kids, really being the foundation at home.
100%. And just also not been managing so well that the kids sort of also doesn't miss you too much, and then you're still in the picture. So that's there could be partner who could totally take credit with the kids, that I'm the only ones looking after you. But then I think what my wife managed well is she doesn't take the entire credit, and the kids still values that I'm there in the picture. So as opposed to the fact that I'm never there and always busy kind of deal. But then my kids always see me as I'm there whenever they need it. I'm available for them whenever they need it.
We spoke the other day, and you were telling me how like obsessed you are and your mind's always racing. How do you balance that with the family life, and then you running this empire and scaling? How do you balance that?
I think the key to balancing many acts is also making sure you look after yourself first, which is going to the gym and exercising every day. It's the key to managing many things in life, because if your mind and body is sound, then you'll be amazed what your body can actually do and what your mind can actually do. But if your minds are cluttered, and if you're not exercising your mind or not exercising your body, and you're putting unhealthy food, or if you have a very bad lifestyle, which is you're drinking every day, you're not looking after yourself, then things will catch up to you. So at the beginning, you might not think this will impact you, but then slowly you get used to with all this unhealthy food and alcohol and whatever the substance you're using is not good for you. Then as long as you put yourself, mind and body into the right place, which is, I believe, going to gym is my temple. Like that's where I worship my body first before I start anything. And once I get out of that, I feel like I can own the world. You know what I mean?
Wow. And for those of you guys who don't know, we actually met in the gym, and I see you on a consistent basis. But I want to take it much further than that, especially for the people who walk into this door or who see you, because you are a brand and are a person who's able to, create what you desire. But like the fact that you go to the gym on a consistent basis and have that discipline, that is one of the highest forms of self-love. If I see you investing in yourself and putting that love into yourself to look after your body, the way you love yourself is the way you treat other people.
100%.
So it goes on with your clients as well. If you're with someone who's disciplined to take care of themselves, I know when I walk in this door, I'm going to get the best service because he looks after himself. And that's something that people don't really look into. And that's something, if you look at you, you'd think you're in your 20s. You know what I mean? So talk a little bit about that before we wrap it up. For people out there.
And especially when you're in a service industry, you need that energy. Like you cannot have the very exciting and energetic energy in the morning, but then you're looking at the client at 4 o'clock and you're lethargic and you're tired and you're yawning and things like that. But then gym will keep your blood flowing in your body. Your minds are sound, your body's sound. So your 4:30 or 5 o'clock client will get the same energy as your 9 o'clock client. So, and that's the consistency that we're talking about. And that's the importance of, going to the gym. That's the importance of looking after yourself, because I keep saying you cannot look after someone else if you cannot look after yourself first.
Bars, man. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem, mate.
This has been a great interview, really getting to know behind the scenes more. And again, there's so much that we can talk about. And I'm sure the people who've come in these doors who maybe even haven't heard about you, for them to be able to see this, for this to be able to go out and learn not only about migration law, because this is just a platform that you use to provide your gift to the world.
That's correct.
But it's deeper than that, and so I think we've learned a lot. I've learned a lot personally. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Eve, for having me here.
Cool.
Really appreciate it.
For you guys, if you want to get your services when it comes to migration law, this is a huge thing, and it's an emotional thing because a lot of us, I have family back home, a lot of people want to be able to live their dreams, especially in a country like Australia. So the gift that you have out to the world is valuable, and you guys, the link is in the description for you to go ahead and follow.
Thanks, Eve.
Appreciate
it. Thanks so much.
Cool, man. That's a wrap.
If you really enjoyed this video, make sure to click here, and I'm sure you're gonna love that one.